Hey everyone, so I wanted to make not even necessarily a guide to what to cybersecurity because I feel like individual like personal security, privacy, um I just kind of wanted to talk about the high level idea behind it as a guide for people who are interested in it to actually if they are interested in their own privacy and are just starting out. In that case, it would be a beginner video because it's mostly going to be about the concepts behind it and the use cases. Because even though I am not personally, um, like I don't use, you know, I've never used Tor, don't really use crypto, like, I don't even, I use a password manager. I don't even use a VPN most of the time because it's like, I can talk about my reasons later, but my point is that I find it very, very interesting, and so I've been reading about it for many years and listening to podcasts. There's some cool podcasts that are dedicated to cybersecurity. It's a very fast-moving thing with tons of innovation. So, you know, you might like reading about cars and stuff without necessarily wanting to buy one. And that's kind of how I am with this because it's interesting. With that, I'll get into it. Um, so, if we are talking about the ideas, it's all about your use case. Um, who are you trying to hide from? And so, if you're trying to hide from the person across the street, you don't really need much tech for that. If you're trying to hide from your ISP, you need a VPN. If you're trying to hide from a hacker, you need a VPN and you should always have you do need a password manager, I think, in the modern era. Like you just do if you do computer stuff. And um a VPN will stop you. Also, it'll help you greatly with your ISP. Like if you like to pirate or do other things that your ISP doesn't like. Um, or you don't want whoever, you know, whatever servers you're connecting to on the internet, if you don't want them to know who you are either, then that's the other reason why you use a VPN. So, um, but the ultimate use case of true privacy, digital privacy, is essentially impossible if you use the internet and ever, you know, network connect to another computer and exchange data with another computer over the internet or whatever over the internet really. So if you are trying to hide from a three-letter agency specifically, and there are not even a three-letter agency, the NSA or the FBI with the NSA's help. And then there's the Dutch companies, there's the Five Eyes, or yeah, I think it's Five Eyes, and then there's all that international stuff. But the international stuff is meant to, it's such a rare use case to want to hide from a three-letter agency because it's like they're going after international terrorists, pedophiles, drug cartel leaders, gun, like weapons traffickers, human traffickers, stuff that's just like, there just aren't that many people who do those things. So I find it kind of interesting that um, it's just kind of sad when I was reading about all this stuff that it seemed like most of the people who were interested in it were interested because they wanted to do bad things. Whereas I was just really interested in the concept of the cat and mouse game with specifically with the NSA. So here we go. Ugh. Not just the NSA, but also the Dutch. The Dutch are really into it. Just the government versus private citizens trying to hide. You know, it's kind of like true crime almost, right? It's like the mob where they're chasing them in real life. They're chasing them digitally. So basically, the main thing, if you want to protect yourself from identity theft, you need a password manager, and it's best to use a VPN also. You you know, you're not like guaranteed to get hacked if you don't use a VPN. You're almost guaranteed to get hacked at some point if you're ever are like, have enough worth stealing if you don't use a password manager. But besides that, the VPN is like strongly recommended for sure. I just they annoy me because even the fastest ones are slow, and there's so many sites. God, so many sites that block or throttle or whatever the VPN servers. Like I can't even. So, I just kind of find the internet sometimes kind of unusable with a VPN. Um, Sometimes like I can't game either, which is like what I do with the internet most of the time. So, and then if you're trying to do something illegal that's not like super illegal, then a VPN and Tor, both a VPN and Tor, but the VPN can screw you worse than just using Tor without one. Here's the thing. If you don't care about your ISP and, your government knowing that you're using Tor, then you don't need to use it with a VPN. If you do use it with a VPN, now you're risking the VPN. You have to trust them. And, no matter what they say about what they do, I'm not saying they're not trustworthy. You can trust them, fine. But the problem is that if your VPN is ever, um, I figure things like you never know what some country can do or like willing to do if something bad enough happens. Like imagine if there's like a really bad terror attack, they could go to VPNs and basically be like, start keeping records now without telling anyone, any of your customers, kinda, and then like for example, and then we audit them to look for the people we're looking for, find like the 5 people who were, find like Osama or whatever, and then that would be it, and no one would know. Like I think about those kinds of things, and it's like that's the kind of stuff where you have to have such a massive target on your back. And so here's how I feel about if you live in a dictatorship or an authoritarian country, Tor is your only hope. Um, and you really should read on the history of Tor. Um, it stands for the onion router, but just call it Tor. Um, like, or otherwise colloquially known as the dark web. It's very interesting to understand what it is and where the technology came from. It was made by the NSA. And I think I understand very well why the NSA made it. And I think that it's so, like, it's so just, man. It's like, it's very real politik. That's basically what it is. Like, because when they decided to make Tor, what they were doing was providing a way for people to use the internet anonymously, and that enables a whole lot of crime. Okay, so yeah. And oh my gosh, hold on really quick. End-to-end encryption. Yeah, I would say just use it. I'm gonna go into why end-to-end encryption is not like its use cases, but definitely I think that end-to-end encrypted apps and things at this point, you have to remember, like, the criminals, like the pedophiles and things, are already using them, and so it's like you might as well, it helps to make it harder for I mean, me, I still worry about the state more than anything. Like, the more history you study, it's like the state is the biggest threat. It's the state. So, in my opinion, well, rather like the state being taken over. It's the power of the state that the state has through its institutions. Where if they're compromised, what can the state do? So this is the thing with the NSA making Tor. I think some people, maybe a lot of people, I am pretty convinced that the NSA controls Tor's endpoints, the endpoint servers. I think it's 3 layers, probably a lot more now, but Tor, the NSA controls the endpoint servers, which means that I don't think that Tor works for against the NSA. I don't think it does. I think that if the NSA really wants to, they can break Tor. And so why don't they do it to catch criminals? Well, they might, very rarely for like things that threaten the United States in like a major way. Or here's the other reason I think it is. The NSA made Tor because it's like the coolest, it's like one of the coolest things ever made, and also it lets the United States see things that others can't see if the NSA can indeed break it. Which, by break, I mean you can't break it, but if you control the endpoint servers, you can. And it's thought that like there's just too many stories. I mean, don't do it. Like basically, the way I'll say is, you best not, if you want to host Tor, host a Tor server, you best not make it an endpoint. Like, I'll put it that way. So, there's control there, and I honestly think that it's a good idea because the NSA can now see things that other states can't see, only because Tor is popular. If Tor had been made by some open source thing or something like that, or worse, God, like China or something, and they controlled the technology behind the anonymous internet software that everyone was using, it'd be a whole nother ballgame. Like, and the NSA, people who are afraid of the NSA, here's the thing you need to understand about the NSA is that what they do to, for example, like break Tor, if they had a warrant for some terrorist and it was like, this dude's been using Tor and we want to know what he did. I think that, okay, the NSA will do that, but the people who do it, guys, at the NSA, people are so afraid of them. Literally, I promise you, the guys who actually know how all this stuff works are just a bunch of tech dudes. Like, I don't know how else to put it. By dudes, I mean they can be male or female, but like just a bunch of tech bros, like tech bro-y people. Or they're intellectuals. So basically what I mean is, I don't see how they would have the kind of, I just don't think they would have the willpower to start helping a dictator. And they couldn't really be compelled to because no one else knows how to do it. Like, you can't. They run they are the NSA. They're the smartest people in the world with that stuff. By like a good shot. If you want to know what I mean, if you think that I'm exaggerating and like mythologizing the NSA, just read about Stuxnet. Stuxnet. Read about it and you'll understand. There's just no way they can see everything that happens on the internet. Everything. I think. But it's extremely resource intensive. It's very labor intensive for them to see anything through Tor. So you have to realize that if you're a if you live in a dictatorship, you should still use it if you're very sure that your government won't know you're using Tor and they think you're just using some VPN that's like just to like game or watch forbidden Netflix shows or something. You have to make sure they don't know you're using Tor. But if they don't know you're using Tor, you should use Tor. because it makes it so that like it's just exponentially more manpower to try to hurt you. So, you know, if you're just a journalist causing a fuss, they just can't spend that kind of manpower. You have to be like a really bad person. So, you know, it, it it's great. It's great. Tor's great because with the NSA, do I trust them? Well, I don't trust them to be like perfectly ethical with everything, of course, and like totally unbiased and totally not corrupt. But I trust them to have like a pretty hard line, just like how I trust like the justice system. It's like, yeah, like it can be corrupt, but there's a line that they have to start replacing people to cross. And you can replace judges, but you can't replace those guys. Those men and women. Um Good luck. So yeah, you know, it's pretty cool. It's very interesting stuff. Um just kind of understanding that it's mostly trying to increase how hard it is to find you, but you just want to understand that it will never be impossible to find you. So, um, yeah. And then also keep in mind, you know, like once I don't know for sure about this, people can correct me, but I'm pretty sure that, you know, if China has logs of all the encrypted data that has happened over VPN and Tor and all that, and they just have stores of encrypted data, and once they have a quantum machine in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, if they have a quantum machine within your lifetime, they're going to know who you are and what they said and what you said, right? Unless you're using quantum proof encryption, which like we should start to, I think, already, because people aren't thinking about like, okay, let's start using quantum proof encryption when there's quantum machines. Okay, but except for the fact that they can just save the data and then wait until they have the tech to break it. So I think that it's really important to start using quantum proof encryption, you know? Like if you want to waste a bunch of resources on something on something like maintaining a trustless ledger, we might as well also do it to use some kind, you know, something that's quantum proof for everything. I mean, from what I know, the only truly quantum proof system is a one-time pad based system. You can look up one-time pad in cryptography, and it's really interesting to read about the differences. Quantum machines can break um, our current hashing algorithms. If you want to know how the NSA sees through Tor, they can control the endpoints, and then through your ISP, they can see the entry point. So they don't have to be able to decrypt the data. It's really cool because here's the thing, guys. If they know, here's what they can do. Here's what the NSA can do, and I think it's so sick that they do this because they've done it for pedophiles. And like when they do it for, you know, if it's done to catch not bad people, it sucks. But when they do this stuff to catch good people or bad people, I think it's awesome. So they've done this to pedophiles before, where if you have if the NSA has data on what you sent into Tor, what the server you're on sent to Tor, and the NSA controls the endpoint, they can see it's matching the data even if it's encrypted. For example, you can know that okay, this person was receiving packets of 3 megabytes every minute in Tor, like just like back to back or something, like from a download. And you can use, it's not that simple, but you can draw those kinds of analyses to look at what server was sending that. What server was it? You can see like if some pedo server is fucking sending those, and then the pedo is getting the same volume out, it's like, and then they also know if you catch one of the pedos, then you can look at the data that they have with their ISP, even if they were connected to a VPN, because you don't have to know what's in it. You just have to know its volume and its frequency. And then if there's programs that are messing with that, you try to find those programs, right? Like there's things called Tails drives that really bad people like to use. If you want privacy, though, I forgot to say, you can't use Windows. You can't have a smartphone. None of that. Even if you have end-to-end encryption, that doesn't matter. If you're trying to hide from the government, you have to have you have to have a Tails drive, or or one of those. There's a bunch of different ways to have something. What a Tails drive is, it just runs a Linux kernel, and then it wipes itself clean every time, so it doesn't store anything, and like any of the settings or what happened on it. But there's all kinds of different things that people can do. Like there's a way to have a secret partition on your hard drive that's only like a couple. Let's say it's only like, it can be like 9 bits long, right? And it's just a random ones and zeros that stores a secret key um for whatever thing you have encrypted, and it can't be broken but you can have it secret to where there's nothing on the screen to tell you it's there. So you open it up and it looks like a Tails drive, and then you like type a password in all caps, and then it'll come up, but then you have to know your own secret key to get the other key. So you can do that stuff, but it takes an insane amount of effort, and you have to be doing something very illegal. Like if you're an American, I honestly can't really think of any reason why you would do that stuff if you're not doing something that's really horrible. But in other countries, I get it. I think it's really cool because there's a lot of dictatorships. The other way that I feel about the government, the reason why I use end-to-end, I don't go that far because the NSA, like I said, the NSA is a bunch of tech guys, and like I just don't worry about them as much as I worry about people like Bill Barr. But even if Bill Barr told the NSA to go after whoever he wanted him to go after, they're just not gonna do it. Like, if you're interested in knowing who, for example, Satoshi was, the guy who made Bitcoin, and also just like his colleagues and his peers, just kind of reading about that and looking into that is kind of will get you a good idea of like who the actual people are, and that does matter because they're not replaceable. So I'll stop here. I might make a part 2, but otherwise it's kind of just really interesting to read about this stuff. So this was kind of like an intro guide. I would recommend, if you really like the Tails drive stuff, I just love the idea of the battle of trying to remain anonymous and hide what you did versus people like the NSA who are so powerful that have all these kinds of tools, and it's just like one person trying to fight this. And the way that there's so many clever ideas on both sides, it's this crazy cat and mouse that happens, and there's like such a long history behind it, you know? Like first there was this, and then there was that, and then they made these hashing algorithms, and then those got broken, and then like all this kind of stuff, you know? And the other thing that I worry about, I want to talk too about end-to-end encryption before I end the video. If you are running WhatsApp, okay, you use end-to-end for WhatsApp. The WhatsApp runs on Windows or Android or Linux, whatever you're running it on. And then, well, yeah, you want to run it on Linux if you want to be anonymous. And then, so they can do that same thing that they do with Tor, where your OS or something, even your hardware, right? Like your hardware serial number can be tied to the time that you first connected to the Signal server. And so they'll have a list. The Signal's a end-to-end messaging app that I think everyone should use. But you know, like they can know, okay, when did this person first connect to the end-to-end server? When did they make their WhatsApp account and start sending data to that? And then you'll have a pretty short list of who it could be, and then it's like process of elimination, like you can figure it out from there. So they do that kind of stuff. So you have to just realize that you're making it a lot more costly to find you, but you're not making it impossible. So if you're living in a really bad dictatorship, I really would say don't watch it. But you also wouldn't watch this video. Like, if your country's so bad that you are going to a gulag for watching this video, you shouldn't try it, but it's already too late. So yeah, but if your country is getting bad, right? A lot of us in our lifetimes, I think, will see our countries, especially like Western democracies, we will see our countries become dictatorships. And I think that it's very important to be educated on these kinds of things, because Tails drives and all that, it might just be for pedophiles and other freaks right now, but in 40 years, 50 years, maybe not. And so I like to follow this stuff just to know, like, what I would have to do if stuff hit the fan, you know? Like, it's like, okay, well, what would I have to do? I can hide from, you know, a political party, but not the NSA. But the NSA probably wouldn't let themselves become a political party's puppet. And if a political party tried, it's gonna be hard to find the people. So, anyway, I'll end the video with that. It's really interesting for people. If you found this video remotely interesting, you should read some stuff about just cryptography. It's really cool. So, yeah. Thank you, everybody.